guys. Welcome to Transcend, a place for spiritual and philosophical discussion. Today I wanted to talk about Nirvana, non-dualistic perception, and the expansion of consciousness and how it all fits together in the greater gambit of reality. So, first off, we should talk about what is Nirvana. A lot of you probably know what Nirvana is, but just in case you don't, Nirvana means blowing out the fire of material existence. What is material existence? In Sanskrit, it's called samsara, and this is the cycling of karma, the process of reincarnation, death, birth, old age, disease, and they're all driven by karma, as I talked about in another one of my videos. So Nirvana is constituted of the position of the self when it is freed from the conceptions of I and mine, proprietorship of the ego, of the intellect, of the gross body, of everything, really. It's the separation of materialistic paradigm and the spirit and the sense of self, known as Atman in Sanskrit, the spirit soul, the self, the particle of Brahman, the energetic particle of the greater scheme of divine energy, known as Brahman. So Nirvana is the process that's attained by meditating for a long time, by realizing that the self is different from everything practically what we've perceived in this lifetime and many millions of lifetimes, really. So, in the state of nirvana, and that is attained through what's called in Sanskrit the Jnana Marg, which means the pursuit of knowledge and meditation, to awaken the state of non-dualistic realization of the self, realizing that the self is connected with the entirety of existence, material and spiritual. It's connected because they're just different shaktis, they're different energies of the one divine source. So the material shakti is known as Prakriti, which means material energy. Then there's Maya Shakti, which means the energy, the divine energy of the material world, the illusory potency that keeps everybody in a sort of dream state, thinking that I am the body, I am the intellect, I am the mind, I am this ego. These are my actions. I am being rewarded the fruits of my actions. So that's the Maya Shakti. And then there is other Shaktis too. There's many Shaktis. One of them is the Chit Shakti, which means the higher principle of knowledge, which encompasses, it's pervading throughout the entire universe. Knowledge, bliss, eternity. Eternity aspect can be realized in the spiritual domain. The material domain becomes dissolved and creates again. And so that's one Shakti. And then the Swarup Shakti, which means internal energy of the divine source. And so these Shaktis, they're all connected. They seem different. They seem unrelated in some ways. Like some people would think, well, the material temporary realm is totally different than the spiritual realm. Therefore, they're not connected. but actually everything within the domain of existence is connected in some way or another. It may be connected in just the sense that they are stemming from the same source, whether it's direct or indirect, but they are disconnected in the sense that one is eternal and one is material. Material being the material world, spiritual being the spiritual dimensions, starting at non-dualistic Brahman. So when one dissolves all of the layers of their conditioned existence, and they dissolve their gross material identity and their subtle material identity, then also known as the astral consciousness, the cosmic body, then one becomes, they start off at this place of negation, this place which is characterized as nirvana. Nirvana is it has its root in negation of the material temporariness that we're so used to. And so nirvana also, it's called BrahmanRealization, you know, the Advaita conception of life where there's no differences, and that conception is rooted in the all-pervasive energy which is known as Brahman. And that Brahman is a place where there is no conception of I and mine. It's a place of bliss. It's characterized by Ananda. It's the Ananda factor of reality. And so when one attains that, they attain a place that is free from distress and anxiety and suffering. And so this is what the conception of the impersonalists or the Advaita Vedantis, they like to, they're searching for a place where no anxiety exists. And I think we all are. That's many people, we start our spiritual path wanting to find freedom from distress, freedom from suffering, freedom from anxiety. And this is one of the main driving forces for spiritual seekers, is they just want to be free of all this suffering. Why do I exist just to suffer? You know, even if I get some happiness in this material world, it's very temporary, fleeting, and very soon I'll experience suffering to a pretty large extent. And even if I don't suffer one time in this lifetime, still death is coming, and then we will have to be reborn in another situation. And surely suffering will be coming to us at some point. So the knowledgeable person, they seek, how can I be free of these things? And so that comes by the process known as Jnana Marg, which means empiric philosophical gathering of knowledge, and also meditating on the self, known as Brahman. We are a part of Brahman. And so by this process, one can negate their sense of attachment. They can put out the fire of kama, not to be confused with karma. Karma means fruit of action. Kama means lust, desire in Sanskrit. So lust for our desires to be fulfilled. And so by disconnecting oneself from all these things, they become situated in the platform of Brahman realization. And that is the basis of spiritual life, really. It's freedom from the material conception, freedom from identifying with this false reality, this temporary reality. But there's more to spiritual reality and spiritual consciousness. And that is characterized as bhakti, divine love. Divine love actually has nothing to do with this path of oneness, this path of meditation. People don't attain Brahman because of love. They attain Brahman because of want for dissolving the personal identity, the false identity. And love may be felt when one is at the Brahman realization, but it's more love of connection, feeling like we're all part of the same energetic family. Therefore, I appreciate you, I respect you, I love you. But that type of, that in Sanskrit, that word is called Shanta Ras. Two words, Shanta and Rasa. Rasa means mellow, or existential relationship to a certain emotion, and Shanta means neutrality. So this relationship of neutrality with the entire existence, with all other living entities, with everything really. It's that's the basis of Brahman, is this Shanta, neutrality. It's not dynamic and it's also not digressive. It's a constant state of contentment, self-satisfaction, called Atmaram in Sanskrit, and a state of freedom from negative influences. But as most people, if they actually look into their own hearts, it's not freedom from these things that they're looking for. They're looking for something more. They're looking for a higher love, to express divine emotions towards others and towards the object of all endeavors, known as, to some, God. They call Krishna God. They call Radha God, goddess. So there's divine feminine, divine masculine, and that's an eternal dance called Leela. So the Leela is going on, and these Leelas, this is where it gets really more complex, harder to understand, and it becomes more, it's a more dynamic reality of complexities. It's where non-dualistic life meets with dualistic life, and they're actually in harmony. In the material world, you get either dualistic temporary life, which we're existing in right now, and we feel the pangs and sufferings of that. No one wants that. But on the flip side, the other side of the coin is the non-dualistic Brahman realization of the self being separate from this material entity, the universe, and feeling this state of neutrality. So higher than that is called, I mentioned it in another video of mine, it's called the Paraviyoma, the spiritual sky, wherein there's unlimited sectors of spiritual enlightenment and ever progressive love, expanding and going on. And so this is where the intellect really is gonna have its downfall, because it's hard to understand transcendence with the intellect, but we can try anyway. It's all we can do until we get genuine revelation of these truths. So in the Paraviyoma, there's spiritual sectors known as Vaikuntha Lokas. And so they're realms, they're spheres, they're places that are unlimited. They're full of infinite variety, and they're full of dynamic love that is immortal, and there's no regression in it. At every second, one feels more freshness, one feels more complex and wonderful varieties of ecstatic love coming from their heart and expanding into the existence as emotion, as rasa, as I mentioned, relationship. So for instance, bhakti is a place, bhakti begins at liberation. It begins at nirvana. It begins at the void, at the oneness. But bhakti itself, bhakti, uttama bhakti, the highest bhakti of devotion, is felt from a subject to an object. And those, not a material object, not a material subject, but a divine transcendental unity. And that is known as yoga. Yoga means union. So it's the union of energy at its base level, which is experienced at nirvana. And furthermore, love is perceived in more rasas. There's other rasas of divine life than neutrality, such as friendship, parenthood, vatsalya ras, sakya ras, conjugal ras, which means loving relationship. It means paramour. It means becoming the divine feminine and offering yourself to the divine masculine. In that sense, Hladini Shakti is the word for the divine feminine, which we are all a part of. We are all a part of the pleasure-giving potency. And Hladini Shakti, that's what it means, pleasure-giving potency. And that is embodied by the primeval goddess Srimati Radharani, who some of us may be familiar with. We're familiar with the names Radha, Krishna. So Radha is the embodiment of divine feminine pleasure, and Krishna is the encompassing masculine proprietor. And so in this place of divine Vaikuntha, there is unlimited, the living entities, they they realize their true identity in relation with a specific type of love. And this type of love goes way beyond the bliss, ananda of nirvana. These higher identities, it's called Swarup City. It means the perfection of one's identity in relationship with divine life. And that these types of ananda, which the soul is always seeking higher ananda. We don't want stagnant self-satisfaction, but we want eternally increasing divine bliss. Which one's better? I think it's pretty obvious, divine love. So bhakti starts at liberation, and then it continues onto something more, as we're familiar with Sita and Ram, another pair of feminine, masculine. We're familiar with Lakshmi and Narayan, another form, and two other forms, and then Radha Krishna. So Radha Krishna, this divine love meets them in the highest capacity, because that is a place of prema madhurya, which means the sweetness of love, beyond self-satisfaction, beyond reverence of godliness, beyond all conceptions like that, which is experienced in realms where Lakshmi, goddess, and Narayan are, or Sita and Ram. These places have the individuals there, they have a wonderful type of love, but it's different from the love for Radha and Krishna. The type of love for Radha and Krishna is very different, and we won't get into that right now. It's a great topic, it's a big topic, and I'd love to talk about it sometime, but mainly I just want to, in this video, it's beyond the scope of this discussion. The main point I wanted to discuss was that bhakti is the onflowing of awakening a higher identity, not just the negation of a lower identity, which we are so accustomed to in this material world, but it's the higher identity. And that is beyond nirvana. It's beyond oneness. And this place of Vaikuntha, I spoke about it earlier, it's a place of harmony between dualistic conceptions and non-dualistic conceptions. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because the word transcendental means it transcends all conceptions of the mind. And so non-dual means connection. It means understanding that we are all, and not just understanding, but actually feeling it in realization. And that is what constitutes BrahmanRealization. And that is also felt in the higher progressive steps of enlightenment and divine love. But at the same time, to increase and to expand this realm of love and infinity, there is a sense of difference, a sense of variegatedness in these realms. And the reason for that, the reason for variety, is that is what gives it gives a chance for the Leela, the divine play of the divine transcendental personalities to dance, to enact loving pastimes, and so many things. These are that's a very complex topic about Leela, about divine relationship, rasa. But the point is that this bhakti, it's ever increasing, and it's not that one attains that realm and then their type of prema is stagnant. It's not like that. It's that there's a constant union and separation between the subject and the object. Therefore, there's more and more scope for revelation of ever increasing life. Maybe that didn't make sense, but the basic idea is that, okay, so one feels the greatest height of yoga with divinity, prema, divine love, and then there becomes, in the Leelas of these divine worlds, the Leelas, they cause separation in the sense that the subject will be removed from the object in an artificial sense, but it's to that living entity who is experiencing it, it's very real and it's very true. It doesn't cause suffering, but it causes one to build up their eagerness, their intense desire to attain their beloved. And that's called Vipralamba Bhav, which means the bhava, the emotion of separation. It's filled with the highest ecstasies, actually. And in this state of Vipralamba Bhav, one actually becomes intoxicated with the meditations of their beloved. They see their beloved in everything, in everywhere. An example of this is the gopis. When they were separated from Krishna, the gopis were going mad in intoxication, and they were speaking to the trees, they were speaking to the bumblebees, they were speaking to the birds, and they were saying, please, you know where Krishna is, please show us our beloved. And they were saying, and the trees, they didn't respond, of course, but the gopis, they were talking to them in this state of transcendental madness. And so these are very high ecstatic points of life, and it's Krishna. The two words Krishna in Sanskrit, it means all attractive. It means the point of all attraction, and we won't get into that right now, but the gopis, the cowherd boys, all the people, the cows, the trees, the plants, everyone is totally intoxicated with love for the divine person Krishna in his sphere called Krishna Loka. So the gopis, they were mad and they were stuck in these states of madness, and these are all transcendental symptoms of separation. And then when one gets merged with the subject, the object, when the subject find its union, they merge in the sense that they meet their closest points. They meet in sambhoga, which means union. Not that they're so merged that they almost lose their specific identities, but they don't lose their identities, because then their love would cease. Sometimes they get overcome by emotions of my beloved is non-different than me. I am the same as my beloved. And in some ways that's true. For instance, when Radha and Krishna are hugging and kissing, they sometimes feel like this body, my partner's body, is non-different than my own. And so that is the feeling of union. And there's much more intense, deeper, esoteric states of union, but that's just the general idea. And so I hope all that made sense. And so I just wanted to tell you all that as an example of what bhakti is capable of. It's capable of states of ecstatic love that are far beyond this material world and the place of Brahman, non-duality. And another example, just to support all of this discussion, which I just talked to you guys about, is there's 4 famous personalities that come to mind immediately. Their names are the 4 Kumaras. They're child-like sages who are the sons of Lord Brahma, who is considered the embodiment of intelligence of this material world. And so they were situated in this non-dualistic Brahman realization. And one time they happened to go to the gateway of Vaikuntha, to one of these spheres called Vaikuntha Lokas. And they, just upon smelling with their nose the scent of a flower that was on Vishnu's lotus foot, they were on Vishnu's foot, they became intoxicated with love for Vishnu. And they realized that Vishnu is my master. Vishnu is actually superior to my realization that I am a soul and I am a substance of non-duality. They said, forget about that. It's true, but I want to be merged in love for Vishnu. And so they went down that path. So many instances like that where people who are situated in the Brahman, the non-duality, they get into a position of realizing their self as a unit of love and not as a unit of consciousness. They care more about the love. Love is the reason for consciousness. Love is the reason for existence. So they care, when they come in contact with that, they want that and they strive for that. And that is an ongoing, recurring theme throughout the Vedas and Puranas. And there's many examples, but that's just a famous one. And so I hope all of that made sense. It's kind of a complex theory and a complex paradigm. Understanding. But anyway, I tried my best to convey it to all of you. And if there's any questions, just please leave it in the comment feed and I'll be happy to answer them. And I hope you enjoyed all these discussions. And let me know if there's any topics that you guys would want me to talk about in the future. I already have about 10 or 20 topics that I have to talk about, so I have quite a lot of content to go over and make videos about. So hope you guys have a nice day, and thanks for joining me here. I love you guys. Namaste. Krishna Krishna, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna. Good afternoon.